All right, welcome back to the shop on a pretty cold Sunday morning. It's a good opportunity to get some building done. So today, there's some odds and ends on the plane. So we're going to cut out the stab. So off camera, I laid it out. I have a template that's the exact size of the stab and a cutout angle, and I'm going to cut it out now on both sides. So that's ready to go. The other thing is, I got to make a couple extra formers. I'll put some former back here somewhere in the back, and I also want to put a former somewhere over here where the canopy line can be cut back. I think on this one I'm going to for a canopy. I usually use a plastic canopy, but I think I may carve a canopy. We'll see. I got some pretty light 4 pound 1 inch blocks that are cut offs. So I may use that to do that. So let's get going here. I'll show you how I cut them out. The other thing we're gonna do is start cutting out all the webbings, and I'll start putting some of the controls together on the wing. All right, so let's get started. So I move the camera angle so you can see a little bit better. So with a brand new number 11 blade, and I'll use a straight edge because we have a flat bottom here. And the way I'm going to cut it, I'm going to cut it all the way through the back, up on the angle to there and up. But try and put it so that the piece I have to put back in is not up against the stab area, which makes it a little bit harder to fit in and finish up. So I'll put it up there, and it's right for the former. And the back, I'm going to cut it all the way straight back. Just lining a line up. Now what I want to do is I want to find the former. I want to cut right up where the former is. Now I'm going to cut right up against the former. That's what you're left with. Cut this just yet, but it's marked to where I got to cut it, so I know when I cut it. When I put it in the stab in, I'll just make sure that these lines all line up, and then have a template to kind of go over it. So that's the first one cut open. Since I have a flat stab, all I need to do is make sure I have a perfectly parallel line to the wing, which I lined these up before about. So that came out good. So now I'll do the other one. against it. Same deal. Now it's nice. You can just fit it back in after you make the cutout for the stab. What's nice is you have a line that you can kind of sand a little bit better. Normally, I cut them up here, and you can never really get that one edge the way you want it. So you got to save these pieces for later. I'll lose them. Outside. Now the tabs are ready. Some of the things we're going to do is cut out the openings here. Wing cut out. Now what we'll do is I mark this. Get a sharp 11 blade really helps. I'm going to take my Zonus one and just start to cut here. Cutting cross veins and take your time. clean this up with a Dremel drum disc just to clean up the hole. Well, not perfect. Anywhere I got CA, a little tough. So those cutouts are done. Like I said, what I do is I'll take my Dremel sanding tool anywhere if the edge doesn't look good, like the spot here looks a little wavy. I'll just clean this up. Remember, it's got to get over the wing anyway, so we're going to do a bunch of massaging it anyway to get it on. Trick is you just don't want a gigantic hole. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Constantly putting it back together to kind of look at it. I'll line up my marks. I always put match marks all over the fuselage so that it's okay in the right spot. So I'm just looking down to fit up. It looks pretty good. Do this off camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up. I'm going to cut all the cutouts out. I think I've shown how I've done it before, but what I do is take a. In this case, I got a marker, pen marker on a 1/4 inch piece of wood, and I kind of just lay it in here like that. The thing I'll do today is I'll install the tail wheel. I need a shorter one. All right, I'll make up something. All right, so we'll do some of this off camera. I'll cut up the opening here. All the openings will get cut open, and we'll be right back. All right, so I hogged out all the formers so the push rods can go through and air will go through as well. Now, the last thing I have left on the fuse before I can really put it aside for assembly is the tail wheel mount. So here's what I use. It's a couple pieces of 3 pieces of 16th plywood. I wrap it with Kevlar and then just saturate it with CA. But I've seen this before. Really, if you look at it, you just make like a little triangle loop, and all you want to be able to removable tail will just push it up into the hole, let go, and it stays in place. I use it on all the planes I build. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it so it lines up on this last former here. And what I'll do is I'll glue this piece in place. And then all I gotta do is make a small cutout on the other side. I just hold it in place. Just gonna CA it in place here. So now what you guys, this happens to be a 3/8 piece of balsa. And now what I'll do is I'll get some medium CA. And what I'll do is just CA this part right in place here. Then what I'm gonna do is put the other side block on it. And you notice it's rounded to meet the bottom of the fuse, so I did check it on this one. Make sure the contour was right. And this will just help, it'll be tied to the former, the piece, and it just helps it from wiggling back and forth. It has a simple bunch of rigidity, almost no weight. But this tail wheel mount is the best one to use, I would say. Now, what I will do is take a little scrap piece here to tie this in. Okay. Now it's sanded in flush. And all it does is just lock this in more. Now just put it right exact in the same spot. Let it dry a second. Then we'll do is take the other piece off. We got to make a slight notch on the bottom to pick this piece up here. So we'll just dry a second. But that's pretty bulletproof. You could tie it to the side if you wanted to, if you're worried about it, but I got it tied to the former here to be tied to the other former here, and it's tied to the bottom. It ain't going nowhere. But sometimes you want to put a piece on top. Now, carefully cutting it out. You want to get this somewhat right, because otherwise, it's one of those things that's a pain to fill in. And there you go. And it's now in. Nice good fit up. Good. All right, so now that's it for the fuse. It's ready to go. So next I'm gonna work on the controls on the wing. But this is all ready. When you put this in, you put a little extra CA here and squeeze it together. All right, so let me clean up this stuff over here. And again, the other thing is I get the mount in, think it's in. All right, so I'm going to take the stuff off the table and we'll work on the controls next. All right, so now we're going to make the elevator push rod with the WFA, the Walker Flap Adjuster. So I use 3/16 carbon rod from Central Hobbies, along with their titanium ends. Really nice fit in there. So now I know I like to cut these down a little bit, take a few threads off them. They don't need to be as long. Just so it's not out such a far moment weight arm on it. If I short it up just a little bit, I'll do the other one the same. About the same length we want it. Yeah, just a pair of Greenlee electrical pliers. They have, you can cut 440 threads, 632. They work really well like that. All right. Shorten these a little bit. So what you want to do is you want to put them on, and they're about 3/8 of an inch, I want to say, of available thread. About a half an inch. So you want to put it at least halfway through on it. Clean it up a little more. I like to get them on about at least halfway so you get some adjustment in them. You need it. So what I'll do is I'll thread it till it almost bottoms, and then back it off about 4 or 5 turns. Okay, so right there, that one's set. Now the other one is for the elevator, and in that one, I'm using a bushing I put inside here. I've shown this before, where you put slop in, knock the ball out, and you put some copper tube in here. So I'll have the ability to have slop on this plane. Again, same thing. What I'll do is I'll thread it all the way down until it gets to the end, and I'll back it off about halfway. You can never be too sure with controls. I want the ability to be able to adjust this. Out of curiosity, let's see. How many turns? One turn, 2, 3. about 20 turns, it looks like, so we'll go back. So I have the ability to move it at least quarter inch in each direction. Which is more than enough. If you're off that much, you got real problems. All right. I'm gonna roughly cut this, so I'll leave it longer than it needs to be. I know 18 inches is where I need to be. Center to center, so that would be 18 there. So I'm gonna make it longer because I gotta trim at the sides anyway. Now we'll cut it. Cut it through all the way. It has a tendency, if people want to tear it, and all you do is pulling the fibers back. So cut it all the way through. All right. That's pretty good. So now, I have my rod. It's oversized purposely. We'll final cut it when we get it on the jig. But there. About 18 and a half inches long. Just fine. I'll cut the last half inch. I'll set when I get in the jig. I'll final cut it to the right size. But now we're gonna focus on this side more. This side. So now what we gotta do is we want to make the flap adjuster piece. So with a 440 bolt, and make sure you have at least a grade 8 bolt. And I want to say 1.5 inches long is the right size. Yep. Quarters. All right. So now what you want to do is you want to cut 3 pieces of this rod at 3/4 of an inch. What I'll do is set this to a 30-second more than 3/4. It's 2. The third one. Get that. Now, you, I use 4 washers here on a lock nut. What I like to do is put 2 washers. 2 washers on each side, so 1 washer slides off the other. Same thing on this side, 2 washers. And this is a grade 8 bolt at a minimum. Do not use hobby ones. Make sure that you're ordering because it takes a bunch of stress. So you need the strength of it. So what you do is you tighten this up now. Tighten up so it's snug, and what you want to be able to do is move. Barely have it move. There's a lot of resistance on it, but you don't want it too tight where it doesn't move. So just holding it like that, you want to make sure this is able to move under some resistance. So I can probably loosen it a very small amount. You just want it to be able to move with drag on it. You don't want to loose where it moves around. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Now that's set up. Now what you want to do is you want to adjust this. You want to be able to have enough adjustment on this. I'm going to count how many threads it takes, and then I'll split the difference. All right, that's pretty good. It's about halfway. And now, so what you got to do is you got to line up the ends of the balls to be equal with each other. So what I'll try to do, I'll use a 90. I can find it somewhere. I have a nice square. A machinist, small machinist square somewhere. Let me go. Oh, Fourth is on the other bench, buried. So now, this is what you want. You want to make sure that these are equal right there. And you have your other two pieces, your other two filler pieces that'll go in between. Let me get a piece of wax paper because I'm going to tack all this together with CA. It does get JB Weld on it. I got to sand these in a little bit. Let me just sand these. Now I got to sand this one in a little bit more. You want to make sure it's smaller than the washer so it doesn't bind up the washer. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to tack glue this in place with some CA. You only need a little bit. Yeah. Let me just get this in position. All right, now for the last one, I got to take it apart so I can get it down nice and flush. I highly recommend putting these in. This Walker flap adjuster. It's a little bit more setup time, a little bit more work, um, but definitely well worth it. Without a doubt worth it. To get the wings perfectly level and make adjustments to it. So now, we'll let that dry a minute and we'll put it back together. So this will get JB welded in. The other thing is take some 1/64 plywood, you cap it on top. So you cut that to size, and then I wrap it with Kevlar rope and then saturate it with CA when I'm done. But I'll put JB Weld in here just as a precaution. Both belts and suspenders controls. So we let that dry. Once I get the controls done, we'll once these controls are set up, we'll take the wing and put the horn on the wing, and also then the flaps. Put this extra rod away. Just I'll make sure it's perfectly dry. And that's what you get. You get 4 tubes together, and again, what happens is it'll get capped. Put a piece here on there. And actually, I'll cut those now. And you can cut 1/64 plywood and even 32nd with a pair of scissors. All right, so those are the 2 pieces for that. All right, not very exciting stuff, but necessary to be done. So you're going to take this apart and together a couple more times, so get used to it. All right, so that's what the finished piece looks like. Except for, I mean, obviously it's going to be it's temporarily. So you put JB Weld here, you put your plywood here, clamp it down, and when you're done, wrap it with some Kevlar tape or even on-wax dental floss works, and just saturate it with CA. Guaranteed not to come apart. All right, so now we'll get the wing out here and start putting the horn on. All right, so now we're ready to put our horn on. The horn is split. You're able to independently adjust them all and act as one. First things first, we're going to put some oil on the edges. Just so we don't CA it together. What we want to do is be able to put this right in the center. So I have marks where the fuselage comes out, where the horn needs to be. So it's a little tricky to do by yourself, but it's possible. So I stick out the copper horns will be about 1/8 of an inch on the outside. That's too bad. All right, so now I'm gonna use some carbon tow here. And again, no secret here, kind of what I want to do is I'll put a little puddle CA. Just get all the toe down. Now it's a little tricky to get this, but I'm holding in right in the middle, pull the toe tight, making sure you're right in the center. That's the first one. Now, second one, we'll cut some more toe. Now, making sure that you're straight here. All right, let that kick off a second. Now, I'm gonna have to put the middle bearing in place with a middle bushing in place. Same process in carbon toe. You can use Kevlar string here too, or believe it or not, dental floss works. Non-wax dental floss works too. All right. So now, okay, that's what that's going to be. Since it's an equal panel plane, I want to make sure the horns come out at the same size, same side, same distance. 27 1/4. 27 1/4. Okay. So now carefully, you don't want to pull this bearing in. This one can float a little bit. Oh, I glued my finger to the wind. I gotta move that over a little bit. Now, carefully, very carefully, not to glue the pieces in, but I'm just making sure this is where I want it. Just a tiny drop on here. So carefully whip some CA on the carbon. Hey, not bad. This time I didn't glue the controls in place. Same thing on the back side here. Put the excess off. Okay. All right. So now the horn is in. Just cut away the excess fiber too. All right, we'll just give that a minute to dry up. Now we're gonna start doing is we're gonna get all the bolts ready for the installation. So I have one of these bins with all different size bolts in it, various sizes, about 1/8 in difference. So I have every size bolt I need, and I can always cut them if I have to. Because these are so close together, I may use button head bolts. So I'm going to run the controls. So the bell crank is 15/16 of an inch. The bell crank, the flap connection is at 1 inch, and the elevator and the flap to elevator is at 1 inch, and it's 1 inch on the end. I run pretty fast controls, probably faster than most people. It's really a preference. I would, if you want good controls, I would say set the, and this is where the difference comes in, right? You want to speed the controls up or down. The the dimension from here to here for the elevator push rod is really are the elevators and flap and sink. So if they're at 1 inch and it's 1 inch at the back, they're 1-to-1, and that's a good safe setting. Now, depending how fast you want to be able to move this, you know, will depend. So, like for example, if I put this at 1 inch, um, it'll basically move 1-to-1 with the elevator and the flap. It means 30 degrees of bell crank is 30 degrees of elevator and flap. Now you can go to like inch and a quarter. Inch and a quarter is about 40 degrees. So 40 degrees of bell crank for 30 degrees of elevator. And if you want inch and a half, which is pretty good setting to begin with, is about 50 degrees. So 50 degrees of bell crank travel gives you 30 degrees of elevator. I work a lot of this out on Howard Rush has an Excel program that really helps you set the controls. So if you want to play, you can get that program from Howard's here that's got a lot of detail on it. But you can kind of walk through it and understand. I'm just checking everything here, making sure that I'm absolutely happy with it. All right. So now that that's done, I'll get some bolting up here. Definitely want to figure out how long of a bolt we need here. Hmm. Just looking at it now. Yeah, probably best using. I'll use button head bolts here, just because of the distance. So to give you a little more clearance there, but the button head is shorter, more shallow. But for the short time, I'll do is just to connect this. I'll use this. This is just a temporary bolt in here, though. Actually, what I will do, I'll put a temporary bolt and move both of them. And again, having all these sizes is just helpful. Hmm. Okay. All right, so we're so temporarily set up here. So now what I will do is JB weld this up. I've done that before, so I'll do that before I leave the shop tonight. One thing I noticed is that the ball link is rubbing up against the elevator horn a little bit. So what I'm gonna do, and it only happened here, what I will do is just space this up a little bit. Or I may just cut the top of the horn off and that'll get me there too. But I could just take a washer and move it out one, and then it solves that problem. All right, so I'm just disassembling this so I can JB weld it. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on to the flap now. The only thing, I'll get the flaps set up. I will not cut the tips of the flaps. I will leave them long purposely. And that's the last thing I'll do is shape them in once the fuselage is on. So just in case we gotta add a little, take a little away. But what I'll do is leave them long. All right, so I got these. I'll glue this up. Let me get the flaps. All right, so we're back to the flaps now. So pretty much same process with the elevators. So we're just gonna lay the flaps out. So I know that I want it to be equal. And 27 and an eighth and 27 and an eighth. Now, so now we're gonna mark where we're gonna put them. So I'm gonna go 1 inch from the edge. So I'm gonna go 1.25 from the edge, just so it has a little more meat there. All right, that's the first one. Same thing on the other side. Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna change the camera. All right, so but it's a little bit better view. So now what I do is 1.25 and then 1.25 on each end. So now I'm only gonna use 4 hinges. I used to use 5. I've been using 4 for quite some time. So 26. So 1. See what's 26 divided by 4. About every 6.5 inches. Let's see how that lays out. A 1. Excellent. 2, 3, 4. Okay. So every 6.5 inches will work. What I like about this ruler, it has holes in it. 6.5. Next one will be 13. And then another 6.5. Perfect. So every 6.5 inches we have a connection. And you get the connection here, so that's the other one. Alright, so now since the trailing edge is a little bit soft, I like to really push into it a little bit. Just helps when I cut the hinge slot. Alright, so we'll do the same thing on the other end. Six and a half. We're marked at 6.5. 3, 4. Alright, now here's mark the flaps. Okay, that's the inboard flap that's marked. Now we'll mark the outboard flap. Alright, so the flaps are now marked. And now we'll cut the hinge slot. I'll cut them on the wing first. Again, using this tool, but you want to make sure that you're lining up straight. Without those on, yeah. For the flat, I always like to have a little bit of a inset here. It's less than a 30-second. So again, this is just a piece of plywood that's the exact size as the hinge with a piece of 30-second, a piece of sticky back paper on it. And depending on how much recess you want is how much you put you can add a piece. Like if I wanted a 16th, I would use a piece of 16th plywood. But I like recessing about a 30-second. All right, same thing for the outboard flap. Just take your time, cut the hinge pockets. Now I do is take my pen, just remark the center line. Remarking the center line. Now carefully cutting the hinge pocket. Again, I'll use this tool. Take your time here. Make sure you're going in straight. You don't want to force them in because then they'll pop up later. You'll end up with those hinge pockets that pop up. So make sure they can go in pretty freely, especially on the movable surfaces. Because what'll happen, you push it in, it'll just swell the wood up. And again, just making sure you're coming down straight. thing you can do is put some sticky back paper on these and clearance the holes. I mean, they'll be a little bit bigger than you want, but not the worst. And this one's always the hardest one because it gets thinner over here. This is the outboard, sorry. Right. That one's ready to go. Do this one. And the flap still have to get finished sanded. This is pretty straightforward. I'll just do this off camera. All right, so now we got it all hinged in. They're both hinged. Let me just put some stuff back. I cut off some excess off the tips. I left it a quarter of an inch longer than it should be, so I can clean them up. Now what we got to do is set the horn to it now. Now it's a little bit tricky, and again, you got to just really be able to put good eyes on it. What I'm looking for is to make sure that the flap is right in the center of everything. So I'm using some tape to help me hold this in place. That looks pretty good. So let's do the same thing down here. Now we can look down both flaps to see. We'll get them. Wow, they're really close. They're very close. Now what I want to do, set this back in the cradle. That's pretty close. Now looking down, you always want to sight down it. Make sure it looks right. Now, out of curiosity, before I do anything here, I want to see how much travel I have. Is it equal? Yeah, that's pretty good. All right. So I'll just reset this. Yeah. So now I'm gonna see if I can tack it carefully in place without gluing the horn in. The other thing we look at here is look at top and bottom. And now I do is just check the height of this one, and then set this one exactly to the same height. All right, so it's all tack glued in place. I'll take it apart and I'll glue it in permanent, give it a permanent glue joint. And now I'll get a filler piece of 1/8 on it, and we'll fill into wherever the side of the fuse is. Looks like we got about I think a piece in there. Let me see roughly. So the fuse ends about there. Yeah, about about a half-inch piece of wood. So probably about 3/8. Give you some off the side of it. And then the fuse sides on mine taper, so it's not exactly even. So you got a choice. You can either put a fillet, you can put a fairing or a fillet on the fuselage side and put this in there. I always like to not have any fairings or fillets or limit them. All right, so we're all set up now. So the next steps is I should be able to start assembling the fuse and the wing together. Next step is to put the wing in. Yeah, so the next steps for me are obviously I'll finish gluing this up, get it all apart. And then we're going to set the wing up in the jig, set the tail up in the jig. We'll finish the controls. We'll get the controls locked in, the wing and stab in position, so it's perfectly locked in. Then we'll take it out, then we'll install the fuse. All right, so hopefully next time we'll be putting a plane together. It really starts to come alive when you start putting it together. It becomes a thing. Otherwise, it's a bunch of parts until you get to this point. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.